At a time when more than 160,000 homeless children are living in temporary accommodation and rough sleeping continues to increase, it is easy to forget that there was a time in very recent history when homelessness services in England were widely regarded as a success. The autumn 2023 snapshot showed a 27% increase in rough sleeping. This is the second year that homelessness has increased, and this number is 120% higher than in 2010, when the snapshot approach was first introduced. Please click on this external link to see the source for this data. It is estimated that 120,000 children and young people are homeless in the UK. This is an estimated figure and could be more. According to Action for Children, this doesn't include the UK's hidden homeless, such as people who are sofa surfing, staying on floors, or with friends and relatives. A review of data held by the National Child Mortality Database revealed that temporary housing was a factor in the deaths of 55 children between 2019 and 2023, of which 47 were children under the age of 1. QSA works hard to help alleviate issues faced by people experiencing homelessness, and the stories we hear are harrowing to say the least. We believe that people are more than just figures, but these figures help to reveal failings in the provision of support and the harsh effects this has on real people. Within the past 2 decades, supported housing in England was well-funded and well-regarded, and benefited from a national quality framework that delivered consistent standards across the country. The consequences of this investment in commissioned homelessness services was stunning. The number of homeless households living in TA in England more than halved in less than 5 years. How did this happen? In 2003, the Blair administration introduced the Supporting People program as the number of homeless households edged towards 100,000. Government investment in long-term, ring-fence funding, underpinned by national quality standards, the Quality Assessment Framework, delivered transformational outcomes for homelessness services. The provision of properly commissioned homelessness services in lower needs supported housing grew to meet the level of need present. As a result, more than 50,000 households and 60,000 homeless children were taken out of temporary housing, much of which was completely unsuitable for their needs. Unfortunately, it did not last. The effects of the economic downturn started to hit between 2007 and 2009, and the government removed the ring fence from supporting people in April 2009. The impact was not immediate, as Homeless Link explains in its report titled "Breaking the Cycle: Delivering a Homelessness Funding System That Works for All." Supporting people remained as an identifiable budget line in the local government settlement, and redirected funds had to contribute towards the aims of supporting people. However, funding was completely absorbed into local authority core grants in 2011. At the same time, the National Quality Assessment Framework was no longer mandatory. Deep cuts to government spending were then introduced as part of austerity, which saw funding for homelessness services drop. The impact over the past 14 years has been stark. A report commissioned by Riverside and authored by Imogen Blood and Nicholas Pleece at the University of York highlighted how England's homelessness sector became traumatized by funding cuts. The lack of ring-fenced funding for supported housing and the resulting removal of the mandatory national quality standards created a bleak race to the bottom. Without the ring fence, councils, which were, and indeed still are, themselves severely cash-strapped, understandably looked for ways to reduce spending. The consequences have been severe. Much-needed services have been decommissioned, while the retained commission contract values for supported housing have increasingly fallen behind the cost of service delivery. Homeless Link's analysis from December 2024 shows that the number of bed spaces available to single people experiencing homelessness in England is 45% lower than in 2008. At the same time, the number of people sleeping rough in England has more than doubled since 2010. And the number of homeless households living in TA has more than doubled to 126,040. The high cost of TA means councils spent £2.3 billion on temporary housing between April 2023 and March 2024, almost treble the £845 million spent in 2015 to 16. This is pushing councils to the brink of bankruptcy, and more than 150 councils held an emergency summit to discuss the rapidly increasing costs in 2023. As regulated commissioned homelessness services have exited the market, there has been a boom in an unregulated for-profit exempt accommodation. While some exempt accommodation is considered adequate, significant concerns have been raised about unsafe and unregulated, rogue-supported housing providers. A report for the London Assembly outlines the situation. Some exempt accommodation providers are charging £500 to £700 a week, but councils have had no way of knowing if the care or housing provided is good quality or value for money. In essence, the lack of ring-fence funding and the removal of the mandatory quality standards means too many vulnerable people have gone from being housed in good quality commissioned services to poor quality, non-commissioned and unregulated services. Supported housing is a lifeline for people affected by trauma and many others who need additional support. The question is, do we create good outcomes for vulnerable people if they are left in temporary accommodation, or worse if they are living in unsafe and unregulated exempt accommodation? The long-awaited Supported Housing Regulatory Oversight Act will soon introduce much-needed mandatory licensing and quality standards again. However, if local authorities had adequate funding to address homelessness needs in their area through commissioned services, there would be no place for non-commissioned exempt accommodation because the local need would be adequately met. After a period of high inflation and cost of living pressures and no inflationary uplift, contracts already under pressure will soon become even more financially unsustainable due to the 6.7% national living wage increase and 15% rise in employer national insurance contributions. As a result, financially responsible providers like Riverside are reluctantly choosing to withdraw from some financially unsustainable homelessness services. It is therefore crucial that the government reintroduces long-term ring-fenced funding for homelessness services in the comprehensive spending review, which adequately meets the levels of need, as well as affording to pay support staff a wage that they can live on. We have already proven we can reduce rough sleeping and halve the number of homeless children and families living in temporary accommodation once before. If the government gets the funding and the quality standards right, we can do it again. The autumn 2023 snapshot showed a 27% increase in rough sleeping. This is the second year that homelessness has increased, and this number is 120% higher than in 2010 when the snapshot approach was first introduced. Please click on this external link to see the source for this data. It is estimated that 120,000 children and young people are homeless in the UK. This is an estimated figure and could be more. According to Action for Children, this doesn't include the UK's hidden homeless, such as people who are sofa surfing, staying on floors, or with friends and relatives. A review of data held by the National Child Mortality Database revealed that temporary housing was a factor in the deaths of 55 children between 2019 and 2023, of which 47 were children under the age of 1. QSA works hard to help alleviate issues faced by people experiencing homelessness, and the stories we hear are harrowing to say the least. We believe that people are more than just figures, but these figures help to reveal failings in the provision of support and the harsh effects this has on real people. In January this year, the Office for National Statistics proposed to stop publishing statistics on death rates among people experiencing homelessness. We have opposed this alongside many organizations. As grim as the numbers are, we need to know and face them. Figures should compel government to find solutions and channel resources where they are most urgently needed. Figures help charities to highlight the gravity and scale of homelessness in this country. QSA runs 2 practical and impactful projects to help alleviate issues faced by those that need our help. Cook Up improves nutrition, well-being, and social connections for people who are homeless or vulnerably housed in London through the provision of free, in-person community cooking sessions. Participants can cook their favorite dishes, make a stock of food to take away, and build new friendships.